Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Football Transfer Forum monthly webinar. Happy New Year. I'm already getting sick to death of saying Happy New Year. How was your Christmas? Yeah, I'm not going to bother with it, Tony. Just know that I had 15 consecutive days of looking after 3 children. That's how my Christmas was. So I'm personally delighted to be back to work. I was back to work yesterday. I was at a game. I was the most excited person in the ground. It was great to be back. Great to be doing things. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, right? I'm good, Ryan. Thank you. I'm really pleased to be at the centre of the football transfer universe, and obviously that's Newcastle. It's absolutely Baltic up here, by the way. So, Kieran Trippier's been on a plane from Madrid to Newcastle, and I think you'll have felt the chill as soon as he stepped off that plane. So. Yeah, it's great to be here. I didn't have children. Well, my children are grown up, so it was a pleasure to have them coming back home for Christmas.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. So my kids aren't on eBay or anything like that now. Like, you know, we've had a nice time, but it's good to be back. And as always, hopefully we've got another interesting hour and a half of chat. A couple of great guests. We're joined again by Peter O'Rourke, football journalist. Morning, Pete. How are you?
Morning, Ryan. I'm all good. I won't say Happy New Year to you.
No, thank you. We're obviously into the January window now, Pete. We're really looking forward to your insight in terms of what's going on. Those of you that don't know, Pete, if you need to know anything about what's going on at any club in terms of players and transfers, he's definitely your man. So we're looking forward to hearing from Pete as well. And we're joined again. We're really happy to be joined again from the guys from Catenaccio AI. Morning, guys. How are you?
Morning, Ryan. Everything is okay, thanks. Good morning.
Good. I bet it's colder where you are than in Newcastle. Yeah, we'll take that as a yes, Tony. We'll take that as a yes.
No, Ryan, it's great, obviously, to have Dimitri and Max on, because, you know, this GBE point system that everyone seems to struggle with since its inception, they're making it easy for us. So we're going to hear from them later in the show. But I'm delighted. Where are you based, Max, by the way?
Now in Riga, Latvia.
Riga, and is it -10 over in Riga, or?
No, today's weather much better. +2, +3, little bit snow. No.
Warmer than Newcastle.
It's minus 10 in the summer there, Tony. It's fair. Guys, I've had a little thought of a little extension for your business. You've obviously done great jobs on the GBE stuff. I think visas for tennis players as well. I think that'd be really good. You're looking at me like you don't know the story. Novak Djokovic. We'll Google it later. Brilliant. So, guys, we're going to look forward to speaking with you a little bit later on and seeing how all the GBE stuff is panning out. Brexit's still having its sort of, you know, the waves of Brexit still impacting all parts of our society and economy. But Tony, you know, let's get into it. You know, January window. What's your first thoughts? What's your first impressions of what it's going to be like?
Yeah, I mean, we always know that January is a little bit of a quiet window in terms of you sort of. There's a few things. Injuries might have played a part. People going away to the African nations. You might be 1 or 2 players short. This is in general, going into a January transfer window, and you might want them players to come in to help you get promoted, stay in the league, or just get into Europe, or whatever it is. It's just sort of the icing on the cake. So you probably think that clubs are going to do 2 or 3 deals max, and maybe because 2 or 3 deals come in, they'll be looking to do 2 or 3 deals going out in an ideal world. So it's usually a quieter window, obviously, than the summer. But I think because we've had 2 years of the pandemic and football finances have been massively hit, you know, other than the top end, the Premier League, I can't see a lot of money being spent in the Championship, certainly not in League One, League Two, and there might be a bit of money in the National League because we know how strong and well-funded some of the clubs are in the National League. And similarly, up in Scotland, I can't see a massive amount of business being done, you know, in terms of transfer fees for real, you know, real top players. You know, people just haven't got the money to sign, you know, big players in those leagues. The Premier League, and I'm sure Pete will talk about it in a little bit, the Premier League seems to me just to carry on regardless. You know, it's there. The monies that they're generating are absolutely massive. The transfer fees will, you know, I could see a couple of big numbers, you know, a couple of big transfers already for more than, you know, single-digit millions. But, you know, whether they'll do a big deal remains to be seen. The other thing, Ryan, that I think is interesting of this January is the number of players who are coming out of contract in 2022.
Yep.
So for me, and I think the agents have led this, there's so many players now willing to run down their contracts because, let's get it right, it puts them in an absolutely, you know, if you're on the top of your game and you're playing at one of the big clubs and your contract is coming out, and there's a lot of examples there, your contract's running out in 2022, June 2022, you can sign for a foreign club now. If you're in the Premier League, you can sign for a foreign club now and just wait till the summer and join that club on a free. And, you know, if you're worth 50 million, that's got to be put into your deal as a player. So it's a real hefty, lumpy contract. It's a brilliant deal for the players. But I'm seeing it more and more often now. And if you look, I don't know whether you use Transfer Market or Y-Scout, if you look at those players who are coming out of contract, there's some really big players.
Really interesting. Guys, before we move on, just a bit of housekeeping. If you've got any questions to any of us, any of the guys on the panel today, please drop that in the Q&A box. Really interested to see what you guys think about the transfer window, the state of transfers generally at the moment, in particular, you know, certain clubs as well. If you've got any perspectives on that, those questions in the Q&A box. If you've got any general comments or you want to network by sharing your Twitter address or your LinkedIn address, then please drop all of that in the chat box. That just makes my life much easier as we're getting through the questions. But certainly want as many questions as possible. We've got quite a few people on this morning, which is great. So hopefully plenty of questions. So, you know, Tony said it really, you know, is there only one story in town? Is it going to be the Newcastle United show, this transfer window?
It does seem Newcastle is the epicenter of this month's transfer window. That's no surprise with the newly found wealth that they've got from their Saudi-backed owners.
Yeah.
As Tony mentioned, agents will be putting players into Newcastle, trying to find some moves for their players because they're probably one of the only clubs who are willing to spend money in this month because of their situation in the Premier League, where they're desperate to stay up. Obviously, they're close to signing Kieran Trippier from Atletico Madrid, which is a real statement signing, in my opinion. Getting in an England international as their first signing under the new ownership is pretty impressive, considering Newcastle are in a relegation fight. To persuade Trippier to swap Madrid for Newcastle is no mean feat, and I think Eddie Howe's probably played a big part in that as well. He used to have Kieran Trippier at Burnley as well. So yeah, real good signing that one for Newcastle. They're going to be the main focus, I think, of this window. They've got the money and they need to sign players because of where they are in the Premier League. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch for all those Newcastle fans.
Yeah, you're dead right. And it's not only the money that they've got in terms of the owners, but the space that they've got from what has been a financially prudent Mike Ashley over the years. They've got a huge amount of space in terms of loss. Just before we move on from Trippier, I take your point about Eddie Howe, but come on. I know you know things. The number that he must be earning, he must have broken the club's wage record. He must be the top earner at the football club now.
Yeah, I think obviously money does play a huge part in it as well. Yeah, Kieran Trippier has got a lucrative contract, a long contract. He was on good money at Atletico Madrid. I think he's more than improved that. I think he's not doubled his money, but he's close to that. So it's a record deal from Newcastle, but that's what they're going to have to do to get themselves out of this mess where they find themselves at the minute at the wrong end of the table. They're going to have to spend big. They're going to have to give out lucrative contracts to sort of lure these players away to leave clubs. Remember Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. There's not many players would swap Champions League football for a relegation dogfight. So yeah, Newcastle, they're going to have to dig deep into those deep pockets that they've got, the owners, and it's going to be make or break for them really, because they've got a long-term project, and a part of that project was not to get relegated to the Championship. So it's going to be a busy one for everyone connected at Newcastle. Nikki Hammond's gone in there to help as well on the transfers. So all hands to the pump at Newcastle. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride, I think, this month for them.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Nikki Hammond, Pete, because obviously Nikki, I think I first met Nikki when he was down as the director of football at Reading, and he's also been up at Celtic, which was, I think he only left about 6 or 7 months ago. But I think they've brought Nikki in to look at this January as a consultant just for this January, and I understand there's a process there. And I think Nolan Partners, we had Stuart King on one of our shows from Nolan Partners. I understand Nolan Partners are looking at a sporting director for the long term. I think Nikki's holding the fort. I think there must be a relationship there with Eddie Howe as well. And maybe when Eddie Howe was talking to Celtic about a deal, he was talking to Nikki, who knows? But I understand they are looking for a long-term sporting director. And some of you might have seen that a mate of mine, Dan Ashworth, at Brighton, the ex-England technical director, did fantastic things with the FA, well respected in the game. Apparently Newcastle had approached Brighton to be able to talk to Dan, and I think so. Whilst Nicky's looking at this January, and I totally agree with you, it's a great start. You know, Kieran Trippier, I think all the people in Newcastle were thinking, right, we've heard what you've said, the new owners, we've heard there's a lot of money behind you. It's like, show, come on, don't tell us, show us. And I think if Trippier does sign, and apparently it's imminent, if he does sign, I think that's a fantastic first statement signing. Wow, you know, you've got another international, like you say, Pete, from a Champions League club. Atletico Madrid is an absolutely fantastic club, and he's come to Newcastle. So that's a big plus for the owners. You know, the feel-good factor in the city, you know, just on his being linked in the transfer news. I know you tweeted about it, and I've been watching your tweets, but that just lifted everyone in Newcastle. Yeah.
To be fair, he's going to be the best player in the Championship next year, isn't he? He's a great signing to get back up next season. But Pete, just before we move on from Newcastle, what else? I think, you know, I was trying to the knife in before we came on air. For me, genuinely, you maybe would keep 1 or 2 players, but for me, they are exactly where they should be with the squad that they've got at the moment, in my opinion. You could replace most positions. Realistically, what are you hearing in terms of how many acquisitions they'll look to make this January?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, Eddie Howe would like to bring in at least 5 signings.
Wow.
Obviously, that's increased because obviously the injury to Callum Wilson the other week has not helped. He's, as you probably for you, Ryan, he's probably one of their best players. You keep him around the thing.
Yeah, well, I'll keep him.
Keep him. So you've got him and St Maximin are probably the 2 key players for Newcastle. Injuries have obviously hurt them with that one. Callum Wilson looks like he's going to be out for a while, so Newcastle need definitely 1 striker, possibly 2 if they could find them. So that's increased their need for new faces in this transfer window. Desperate to improve the defence. Central defence is a key priority. I think that's what they're working on right now. Lots of talk about Sven Botman of Lille, trying to sign him. Lots of other targets as well. James Tarkowski of Burnley. And I think if he could get a left back, he would possibly do that as well. They have been talking to Everton about a deal for Luca Dean, who's obviously fallen out of favour under Rafa Benitez at Everton. So I think Everton would let him go for the right fee. So yeah, I think Newcastle, they're going to have to spend big to sign some of these players. Botman's 25 million plus if they're able to manage him. Luca Dean will be similar. And then looking at strikers, we all know, Tony and Ryan, that strikers are probably the most expensive if you're going to get them, everybody wants strikers because they're the people who score the goals to either get you out of trouble or win you titles or win promotion. So yeah, so much going on at Newcastle. And I think, as Tony mentioned, Nikki Hammond's been brought in short term. I think 6 weeks gig that he's got or whatever, but he was brought on for his expertise because although the new owners are in there, not a lot of football knowledge on the board at the minute. So they brought Nikki Hammond to give them a helping hand, and longer term, they'll be looking for this director of football, whoever it might be.
Yeah, so Pete, there's just a question there in terms of what is the recruitment setup of Newcastle at the moment. So effectively what you're saying is it's pretty much Nikki Hammond in terms of what's going on in the first team.
Yeah, Nikki Hammond has been brought in for this specific role. You've also got Steve Nixon, who's chief scout there. He'll have a big say on things as well. And then obviously those two will be working with Eddie Howe to try and see who they can identify as transfer targets, who they can possibly get. And then you've got members on the board as well, who we all know will have people in their ears, agents, other contacts saying, oh, I can get you this, I can get you that. So you've got the Reuben brothers, you've got Amanda Stavely and her husband, and then probably people in Saudi Arabia as well who might have some insight. So it's complicated, but it's probably what Newcastle need right now to overhaul that squad.
Just before we move on from Newcastle, I watched a podcast with Isaac Hayden on, and he's a very bright individual, is Isaac Hayden. He speaks really well. I think he's even doing a sporting director's course, something like that. And he made the point that it's all well and good bringing 4 or 5 players in, but Newcastle at the start, when they needed to put the 25-man squad in, they put a 25-man squad in. So if you sign 4 or 5 players, that takes it up to 30. You have to get, 5 players out of the club as well. So there's a bit of to-ing and fro-ing. There's a lot of work to be done if you are, so if Kieran Trippier comes in, do they need Manquillo and Kraft? And he made the point there's players there on, long contracts who are in good positions. They don't need to move. But if you get left out of a 25-man squad, you're not playing. You're just not playing. And it happened with a couple of players. I think it was Henry Saive and Christian Atsu, who'd been signed long ago. They were left out of the squad and they're just kicking the heels. What do you do with these guys? They come into training, but what's happened to them? It's not a great position for any professional footballer. And as an agent, you won't want your player to be out of the 25-man squad, will you? It's a tough one.
No, it's poor management from the club as well, Tony. It's they've obviously arrived in this position through a multitude of poor decisions. Let's move on from Newcastle, because it's not good for my blood pressure. Newcastle, I get wound up by it. I can't wait for them to get relegated. Who are the other teams? I agree with Tony. January has traditionally been a bit quieter. But I feel there's a lot at stake this season. I feel there's a very competitive top end of the Premier League. I feel like the bottom end is one of the poorest we've had in a long time. And then the middle club, my club Wolves, for example, they're doing brilliant with what they've got. They're probably overachieving with what they've got. How do you see the rest of the clubs playing it out? Let's take the big clubs, for example. Do you see City, Liverpool, Chelsea doing anything in January?
Normally the January market, you don't see the big clubs get involved in it too much unless there's a real necessity to do it, because they know maybe you're not getting value for money in January, and they'll wait till the summertime to find their top targets. Chelsea might do something just because of Ben Chilwell's injury, so they're also being mentioned with Luca Dean. Liverpool might surprise everybody and trying to bring in an attacking player because of the Africa Cup of Nations. Now they've lost Salah and Mane. Man City, they don't need anybody, do they really? They can win titles without strikers, so they don't need anybody. As simple as that. So, but they'll wait till the summer.
When you mention Man City, sorry, Pete, when you mention Man City, they were heavily linked with Harry Kane in the summer. They didn't need him, did they? What would it? You didn't need to spend that. It's incredible. And what about Manchester United, Pete?
Yeah, lots of bit of growing unrest at Old Trafford, it seems. Lots of reports coming out, which is never good when you look at that. Obviously, Ralph Rangnick's in there as a interim manager until the end of the season. Performances haven't been great. Obviously, lost to Wolves, and Wolves bossed that game on Monday night and deserved the win. I think, Man United might be thinking now, probably before the last couple of weeks, they thought we won't enter this January market. We'll wait for whoever the new manager is in the summer and save the money for him. But looking at some of those performances, they might have to move into the transfer window and talk of maybe looking at least one midfielder, maybe two. And they've got the extra complication of what's going on with Paul Pogba's future, out of contract in the summer. He's free to talk to interested clubs from abroad right now. So might just not be one midfielder. They might need two for the summer if Pogba moves on.
Aim up to Newcastle. The Man United situation, it's a sort of travesty, really. You know, potentially highest wage bill in world football, and really, again, you know, if you look at where they currently are in terms of personnel, how they're playing, you see it as a case of those players just really underperforming, or you see a turnover of players required to meet the expectations of the club?
Well, everybody expected the turnover in the summer when they brought in Ronaldo, Rafael Varane, Jadon Sancho. Apart from Ronaldo, it's hard to say those transfers have worked out for Manchester United. As you said, massive squad, full of potential, world-class players. I think it's probably shared equally. The players need to step up a bit more, I think, for me, and do a bit more. But then you got to look at the management situation. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer obviously got a lot of flack for maybe not having that tactical nous to get the best out of those players. That's why Ralph Rangnick was brought in. He's very highly respected in coaching circles. He's finding it difficult, it seems, just to control that Man United dressing room, and I think that's where all the problems are stemming from. So it's probably down to the players. So many big names, big egos in there, and they're obviously not performing to the best. And I thought Luke Shaw's comments after the game on Monday night were quite revealing, to say the least. So yeah, it's definitely something not right at Old Trafford.
No, but you know, Luke Shaw needs to have a look himself in the mirror. You know, you look at for the goal. The goal, he's allowed Traore to turn himself around. Once you've done that, you're dead. Yep. You know, he's going to just run past you. He's a player I don't rate. I'm right on it this morning, aren't I? I'm angry. I'm angry this morning. Tony, how do you see the Man United situation? Because it's a mystery, sort of like wrapped in a dilemma, wrapped in everything else, isn't it? You know, how do you unravel the situation at Man United? Would you get Roy Keane in?
The thing is, there's no point in signing more players if the structure and what you're asking the players to do, and if the dressing room, and Pete alluded to it, and I don't know whether the dressing room is right or wrong, but you know, it doesn't look like a United camp. So there's no point in bringing other players in. You know, I love Jadon Sancho to bits, and how he hasn't, you know, done it at United. I would totally not blame the player. It's just if things aren't, the structure isn't right. I think Ralph Rangnick is like putting a sticking plaster on a bloody broken leg. Do you know what I mean? And that, don't sign players, get the structure right, put a sporting director in.
Yeah.
Well, no, they have got a sporting director. Decide that he's going to be a key player and get the next manager right, and then you can start again. But I think it's a long-term building process. For me, if Pogba goes, are you that bothered? I mean, financially, yes. And obviously, for me, I've never liked the Glazers' ownership of the club, and the sooner they leave the club, the better. But apart from that, you know, it's a total rebuilding job.
There's a little comment here, Pete, and let's see if you agree with this from Hugo. Hugo's saying that he understands that Luis Diaz to Liverpool is done. Is that something that's on your radar?
Yeah, there's a few reports emerging today that Liverpool are trying to sign Luis Diaz for £60 million, which would be big money in this January transfer window. I can't see many other bigger signings than that if it does happen.
Wow.
I've got my doubts on it if it will happen. Obviously, lots of Liverpool fans aren't not happy that FSG maybe don't dip their hands into the pockets a bit more, but he's definitely a player that Liverpool are well aware of. They played against him in the Champions League this season.
Yeah.
Very talented player, Colombian international. Yeah. Everton were linked with him in the summer, I think, with a few others. So maybe Liverpool are deciding they might need Diaz in to add to their attacking options with Salah and Mane both away this month at the Africa Cup of Nations.
They're so short up top, aren't they? I mean,
well, it's a massive drop down when you see who comes in to replace them. So
that's it. Yeah. I mean,
Ryan, can we just, before we move away from the Premier League, maybe talk about the Championship?
Yeah.
Talk to us a bit about Everton, Pete, because they've hit the ground running.
Well, they've hit the ground running the transfer market, not on the pitch, not on the pitch this season. Not a lot of happy Everton fans, but yeah, they've been busy. They brought in Makalenko from Dynamo Kiev for decent money, and then they followed that up with the signing of Nathan Patterson from Rangers, a highly rated young Scotland international, who for £12 million I think was good business for both clubs. Good money for Rangers for a player who wasn't a regular in the side this season, while Everton are buying potential. But it seems, despite all Everton's problems on the pitch at the minute and being at the wrong end of the table, the Everton board are backing Rafa Benitez. They obviously want to stick by the Spaniard despite all the flack and the criticism that he gets from the Everton fans, and 2 new signings. And if they sell Luke and Dean in this window, I wouldn't rule out maybe more signings at Everton.
And of course, Tony, that's come in the context of Benitez taking charge of the recruitment process now. Brands has gone. Some of the other senior people in the recruitment team has gone. How do you see that? You know, we're talking about, you know, Man United, Newcastle. You need this structure. You need this long-term plan. It seems to me like Everton have panicked a little bit, and then they've just, oh right, we're going to give Rafa the reins to do what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of history repeating itself, really, because he wanted full control at Newcastle, and there was a little bit of a lot of to and froing with Ashley, and obviously Lee Charnley as the chief exec had to sort of mediate between the two. But Rafa wants to go into the clubs that he manages as a manager, not as just the head coach. And I remember famously back at Liverpool when he was told by George Gillette, "Oh, you do the coaching," and obviously George Gillette didn't have a clue what he was doing, but he was really upset by that comment. You just do the coaching. I seem to remember an interview with him, and he's got control of Everton, but it ain't going well, is it? You know, so the guys who've just left, and Marcel Brands, Greta Steinson was at the club, Dan Purdy was at the club. They've all left now, and it's Rafa's gig. You know, I think the sign of Nathan Patterson was a fantastic signing. I saw Ross Wilson on LinkedIn the other day saying it's the record signing, you know, record transfer for Rangers coming out of the academy. So that's great news for Rangers, isn't it? And he's, for me, you know, I played right back a bit, but this lad's going to be a real top player.
You were a good player, Tony. Don't say it yourself. You were decent. You were decent. Okay then, Pete. So, anything else in the Premier League you think could be on our radar, or?
Yeah, I think there'll be a few clubs. As Tony knows, January window is very reactive. Clubs will move for players if they end up losing players. Interesting one's going to be Philip Coutinho and where he might end up. Real unhappy time at Barcelona since his big money move from Liverpool. It just hasn't worked out for him in Spain. Yeah, it seems like Aston Villa are leading the chase for him because of the Steven Gerrard connections. We've also got, I'm sure, Spurs interested, Arsenal also linked, and again, you can't get away from it in this window. Newcastle being linked with Philip Coutinho. So yeah, I'm sure he will have a lot of suitors. Obviously, it's a big price tag and big wages to contend with for whoever does bring in Coutinho. But if he comes back to the Premier League and regains the form he showed at Liverpool, it'd be a great signing for anybody, I think, in that one. And then obviously, as you said, Wolves are after a few players as well.
Yeah. Ryan, I saw Wolves signed the Japanese international, Hawabe, is it? £500,000. You know, Wolves seem to be going through a bit of a corrective position in terms of their FFP stance. Again, did you see any divergence away from the George Mendes pool of talent, or will we be expecting more Portuguese?
I don't know. I think, as you said, they've maybe moved away slightly from the George Mendes project. Obviously, it did what it needed. It got Wolves to the Premier League, consolidated them, and some big players have come to the club, and some have worked out, some haven't. Obviously, Ruben Neves has been a great signing. You've got seeing him linked with Manchester United now and everything else, but Wolves would love to keep hold of him. I just think for Wolves, probably this window, they might have to sell before they can buy, as you said, with FFP, and that might mean Traore could go or something like that. So
I just don't understand that. I mean, I think we all agree Traore. I think Traore and St Maximin are the two players in the Premier League seem to be able to do things that nobody else can do. And I think the Premier League used to have a lot of those players, but it really, for me, it's just those two. I'm not sure why you would sell to your competitors, because they're talking Spurs, aren't they? They're talking Spurs being interested. I'm not sure why you would do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I think a lot of it comes down to he's not signed a new contract at Molineux, and so obviously Wolves will have to protect themselves. If he's not going to sign a new contract, you may as well try and get some money for him rather than seeing him walk out the door on a free transfer when his contract expires. So yeah, the club have got to be astute in this one. If he's not going to stay, you might have to try and get some money from him and reinvest it elsewhere. But yeah, be a big loss for Wolves because, as you said, on his day, probably the most exciting player in the Prem.
Yeah, I agree. But there is a baby oil shortage in Wolverhampton with him there as well, so that'll at least readdress one issue in the city. Let's move on into the championship. Are you hearing anything? I mean, money is generally so tight. There are clubs that. We've still got clubs in the championship under transfer embargoes, clubs in administration, all this type of stuff. Do you see anything happening with any money attached to it?
It's going to be really tough, I think, to see clubs spending money in the Football League, the Championship. You've got to remember there's a lot of uncertainty still around. A lot of these clubs with transfer embargoes, clubs haven't recovered from that first shutdown of football when there was no crowds, no matches, anything else. That really hurt them financially. So I think in this window, there's a lot of caution from Football League clubs on what they can do and what they need to do. I'm sure a lot of them would all love to bring in new signings, but I think if there's any movement in the Championship, you're probably looking at loan deals on the cards. We've seen Middlesbrough have made a good loan signing with Aaron Connolly in from Brighton. It looks like they're going to get Florian Balogun also on loan from Arsenal, but I think that's a costly one because they're going to pay most of his wages and maybe a decent loan fee as well. So Middlesbrough giving it a bit of a go, trying to win promotion because the clubs around that end of the table, it's a real opportunity this season. I think that Championship for me is wide open. I thought a couple of weeks ago Bournemouth and Fulham would run away with it, but I think the others have closed the gap now. Yep. And the real chance to get into the Premier League, and we all know that's where the money is. So yeah, I think clubs might gamble, but it'll be late in the window in the Championship, I think.
And Pete, we saw Daryl DK come into West Brom, and I must say, Valérien Ismaël, what a job he did at Barnsley. What a job he did at Barnsley, getting them into the playoff positions. He signed him on a loan at Barnsley. Obviously, Barnsley are really struggling now in a division where it's hard to get relegated because there's, Derby have had points deduction, Reading have had points deduction. You have to be doing really bad to get relegated this year, but they're not doing great. And then Ismaël, it's sort of not going as smoothly as you would have hoped at West Brom. West Brom used to be that yo-yo team to get out of the Championship, so they brought him in to sort of get the extra goals on the board. What do you think about him as a signing?
Yeah, good signing, I think, for West Brom. Probably just exactly what they needed. They were struggling to score goals this season under Valérien Ismaël. Thing with Ismaël is, I don't think his style of football is too well received by a lot of the Baggies faithful. Obviously, if you're winning games, you can get past that as long as you're winning games and up at the top. They're still in a good position. There's no need to panic just yet, I think. But yeah, they could really do with Daryl DK coming in, hitting the ground running, scoring the goals to get them to win games, because a club like West Brom, I think it's vital for them to get back into the Premier League. Still a big squad there with some big name players, and you can't afford to be keeping those players in the Championship because a lot of them will be on decent wages. And West Brom, as you said, being a bit of a yo-yo club, so it's paid the club well to be doing that with parachute payments and everything like that. But yeah, West Brom see themselves as a Premier League club, so they don't want to be sticking down in the Championship for too long because it can be a long, hard road back if you don't get it right in the first couple of years, probably.
Really, the story of the Championship, I think, this season, Tony, is Blackburn Rovers. I mean, it's done absolutely phenomenal. You could have got Brett Brereton, right, 25-1 at the start of the season to score 20 league goals or more, and he's got it already. There's got to be interest in him. Since he's turned Chilean, he's turned world beater. I've got on Ancestry.com. I'm looking for some Chilean ancestors myself. There's got to be interest in him.
I'm so pleased you mentioned Blackburn Rovers because you're talking about interest in Ben Brereton, Diaz, but interest in Tony Mowbray. Tony Mowbray goes to clubs that play good football. His players get bought, as we saw with Adam Armstrong in the summer. Adam Armstrong, you thought the Venkies are wanting to get as much money in as they can. Adam Armstrong goes. You think there was a a lot of unrest at Blackburn, people talking about, oh, he's got 4 or 5 games. He starts the season like a house on fire, plays the football he wants to play. And he's also got another asset now, hasn't he? I mean, I think with Ben Burton Diaz, I think that the cup competition that he was in the summer just kicked him on unbelievably. He didn't really need a pre-season because he'd been banging in goals. What was it? The Copa America. And he was banging in goals. So he came into pre-season like a man on fire, you know, already wound up, ready for the action. And you know, he's got to be on some of the Premier League targets, hasn't he? And you know, and the other player he's lost is Bradley Dack, who was a very, very good player.
Yeah, not bad.
And you know, you lose Adam Armstrong, you lose Bradley Dack, you think, oh, this is going to be a tough season. And they're bang up there, they're bang at it. But, you know, I think if somebody comes in with, I don't know what the figure would be, Pete, you probably know better than me, 25, 30, and says, right, we want to bring him to the Premier League, he's going. I think he's going.
It wouldn't take that amount of money to get him out, would it, Pete? I'm thinking more sort of 10, 15.
Yeah, I think Blackburn see that price tag of 25, 30 as being realistic. Obviously, he's 6 months left in his contract, but they do have an option on him, and they will definitely take that up to protect themselves. But I think a lot of the clubs are using sort of the examples of an Ollie Watkins at Brentford, who went to Aston Villa for 30 odd million pounds. They're looking at that as a sort of ballpark figure. Now you got Diaz, the benchmark Diaz, Brereton Diaz, 20 plus goals already, and we're only in January. Playing on the international stage at the highest level, it's going to increase his price tag. So fair play to him.
Come on, Pete. Who's in for him? Who's interested in him?
I know he's on Newcastle's list. I could be on Newcastle's list. I'm one of those. If I change my name to Pete Suarez, I might have a chance. But he's on the list. He's probably maybe not necessarily at the top, but he's definitely figures on it, and well deserves to be with the goals that he scored this season. Brighton are long-term admirers of Brereton as well. Leeds also like him, but couldn't get anywhere near those figures right now in this window, maybe in the summer. But for Brereton Diaz, he was very highly rated at Forest. The move to Blackburn didn't initially work out for him, but yeah, as Tony said, he found his feet. That Copa America experience has just put his confidence through this roof, really, and he's carried it on from there. So big asset on their hands, and they're looking at Premier League promotion right now, so they'll be desperate to keep him. So it would take a huge bid for them to even let him go this month.
Fantastic. So let's get down into the other leagues. One little rumor I heard yesterday was Patrick Roberts to Sunderland. Is that something that's on your radar as well?
Yeah, it's a real possibility that Patrick Roberts could be coming back to the UK. He's been over in France at Man City's sister club Troyes. Hasn't really worked out for him. Another real unfortunate one for Roberts. When he was at Fulham, lots of big talk about Patrick Roberts being the next big thing. Got a big money move to Man City, but he spent most of his time at Manchester City out on loan at various clubs. Did well up at Celtic, been at Middlesbrough, been at Derby, over in France now. But yeah, good player, really like him. And Sunderland obviously aiming for promotion. If they could get somebody like Patrick Roberts in, it could be a big boost to them. He watched them last week at the Stadium Light just to have talks with Lee Johnson and everything else when they beat Sheffield Wednesday 5-0. So I think they're pretty confident they can get this deal done. And I think for Roberts, it'd be a big opportunity for him to go to another big club, and the Sunderland fans would love him, I'm sure.
Tony, Sunderland have already done a little bit of business. Do you really see this is the season that they've really got to get up? They'll push the boat a little bit if required.
I don't see them pushing the boat out massively. I think they've done fantastically well. You know, Christian Speakman as a sporting director, it's a very steady ship. You know, they've signed a lot of players that wouldn't be that well known at the beginning of the season. You know, took a German goalkeeper, they signed some young players, and you thought, how are they going to get on in League One? And they had a little bit of a blip, but they're back up there, aren't they? And with a couple of decent signings, like we're saying here, Patrick Roberts, you know, they're going to be there or thereabouts with your Rotherhams and those type of sides. So it's interesting, but you know, it's too big a club to be in League One, isn't it? We all know that. It's just a question of getting over this first hurdle and getting out of League One, you know. And
League One, Pete, you know, I'm just looking at the league table now. Rotherham, Sunderland, Wigan, Wycombe.
Wigan are strong, aren't they?
You know, four horses for two places. It's going to be competitive, isn't it?
Oh, it is competitive. I think Oxford could maybe make a late run as well. They've been in decent form under Carl Robinson, big club as well. Big plans. They've spent quite a bit in the transfer market over the last couple of seasons as well, so they could make a late push. But yeah, it's all these clubs. Wigan, who have been in the Premier League before, Sunderland, who are desperate to get back to that stage, Wycombe, who obviously got relegated last year. You can just see that these squads are bigger and stronger than most of the rivals in League One. So you would expect them to maybe fight it out, and maybe whoever does the best business in this window, that could be the difference between promotion or just staying in League One next season.
Just one more on League One. Ipswich in pre-season had a little Real Madrid moment, didn't they, where they were going absolutely ballistic. Obviously, Paul Cook's been sacked as well. It's not worked out in any shape or form. I'm not sure how they're operating in terms of the salary cost management protocol within League One as well. Have they already spent all their money? You know, that they're mid-table, 11 points off the playoffs. You know, is there anything coming out of Ipswich?
Yeah, obviously it was a big project in the summer. Mark Ashton has come in as chief executive as well, who's worked at Bristol City, as you said, spent a lot of money, brought a lot of players in the summer. Obviously, it takes time for all these new players to gel. As you said, it was like maybe more than 11 players were brought in, something like that. So it was going to take time for them to try and settle as a team. It didn't work under Paul Cook, unfortunately for them. They've got huge ambitions. They are quite well off as well. The owners, I think, they're quite rich. So I'd expect Ipswich maybe not spend a lot in this January window. But I think in the summer, if they're still in League One, they'll be the big hitters probably in that league next season. But as you said, with FFP and everything else, they're probably going to have to get rid of players to free space on the wage bill and in the squad to make new signings. But also, they've gone for an exciting managerial appointment in Kieran McKenna from Manchester United, who obviously worked under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Old Trafford. It's first sole management job, so it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on, and he will need backing in time to get things right as a switch.
You know, I was watching on New Year's. I think I mentioned I had the kids, so I wasn't out, but I watched that Jules Holland Tanani, and he had Ed Sheeran on, who of course is a big Ipswich fan, and he was getting into the football club on it, and he was also moaning because they were losing to Barrow or somebody. You know, I just felt like, oh wow, you know, what a point to reach as a club where you've got Ed Sheeran, you know, slamming you on TV. You know, a low point for
get him in as manager, see how he's.
Well, yeah. I just wonder if he might be a future owner of the club. He's certainly got the means, and he certainly cares about the football club. So we'll have to wait and see. I know he's the sponsor this year, isn't he? As well. Yeah. So that's interesting. Tony, let's get into the non-league. I don't think it's been talked about enough. We've talked about it a lot on our platform. We've had it's a mind-boggling situation this season where the National League is more liquid, richer than the vast majority of League One, League Two, and we've seen, you know, players coming out of League One to go into the National League. I think we'll probably see a bit of action in. Of course, they don't really have a window, so that's an advantage to them. But there'll probably be some stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean the clubs in the National League, and really, when you look at the EFL, the National League is as strong as many of the teams in League Two and some of the teams in League One as well. You know, you've got a big club like Notts County, Stockport have always had a lot of resources to throw at players, and then you add to that Wrexham. You know, there's some big clubs in that league. Obviously, it's a really tough league to get out of with just the two slots, and I think that should be changed as well, just to make sure that the standards of League Two and League One are kept high, because at the moment I think, you know, there's 5 or 6 teams that could easily hold their own further up the ladder, but it's just getting out of that National League, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, no, it is. And again, I'm looking at the league table here. Chesterfield, they've struggled last season, but have done well this season. Halifax, you know, they're not really awash with money, you know, doing really well. But now we're seeing, you know, Wrexham who are now in third. It wouldn't be a surprise to see them strengthen even further. Phil Parkinson, manager, obviously the American movie stars as owners. It's been a bizarre 18 months, and that's one of the sort of cherry on top, hasn't it, really? Are you hearing anything towards Wrexham?
Yeah, I think they'll be the ones that'll attract most attention in the National League during this transfer window. As you said, Hollywood FC, Wrexham, the way things are going there with the money. But yeah, they're the ones that will spend big. And they're not just looking at players from National League North or National League. They're looking at players in the Football League. And that's probably the difference for them and a lot of other clubs, the likes of Stockport. They have got the budget to go out there and sign players. I know Bill Parkinson's looking to bring in 4 or 5, and most of these targets are all playing in the Football League, clubs in League One, clubs in League Two. And the thing for Wrexham is it's an ambitious project there with all this going on with Ryan Reynolds and everything else. They've obviously got this own TV series coming up as well and everything else. There's lots of eyes on Wrexham. They're trying to raise the profile, and for them, they want to be moving up those leagues as soon as possible. So that puts pressure on Phil Parkinson to get things right, because he's got the job to try and move them up the leagues. But yeah, some of the wages I've heard that some of the players are on in the National Leagues, eye-watering, really.
Yeah.
More than players in the Football League.
Absolutely, Pete. And the one thing you would say for Wrexham and Stockport, though, is attendances have been absolutely phenomenal. I think Wrexham went 4 consecutive games of over 9,000. Stockport have had over 10,000 at some of their games. That's positive as well, isn't it?
Yeah, massively positive. That's where the people who've invested in these clubs can see the potential. That there's big fan bases there, good clubs with good history as well. These clubs were in Football League clubs for a long time before their demise into the National League and everything, and proud histories in cup competitions as well. The likes of Wrexham and Stockport as well have done well in the cup competitions in the past, and obviously they've had this investment which makes them the big dogs in the National League right now to go and sign the top players.
Yeah, just one final one. Also in the National League, Southend. They're right down the bottom of the National League. They're really threatened with relegation out of the National League. Of course, I was chief exec at Stockport when we got relegated out of the National League. An absolutely brutal position to be in. I mean, they've dropped quicker than what Stockport did at the time. Just problems everywhere at Southend.
Yeah, real sad to see the demise of Southend from where they were. They were a steady club in the Football League, but lots of bad decision making has gone on there. They've obviously brought in a new regime. We've got Stan Collymore in there advising John Still, who I think is a good appointment. He's well experienced with what he's done at various clubs as well. But yeah, it looks like it's going to have to take a few steps down before they can start thinking about coming back up. But yeah, hopefully this new regime, given a bit of time, and it's going to take a bit of finance as well to get Southend back where they feel they belong. But yeah, it's a real tough season for them, and I think it's going to get even harder probably in the second half of the season for them.
There you go. Well, Tony, we've gone from Kieran Trippier to Stan Collymore.
Actually, Ryan, there was one thing I did want to bring up with Pete. I've just looked at my notes there. I do actually make some notes before I come on. It's not just all ad hoc. The Southampton Takeover, Pete.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know it's been ongoing for a while, but then it just came out of the blue there just after New Year that this takeover's happened with the businessman Dragan Solak from Serbia. Obviously, he's bought 80% controlling stake of the club, but it's probably going to be a bit different from most takeovers, I think, of clubs. They've got a huge project. They want to have a portfolio of clubs, a bit like Manchester City do, with all their sister clubs around Europe and the world. And also they've got some interesting people helping them out. They've got the former Brentford co-director of football, Rasmus Angussen, who did a superb job at Brentford, helping them climb up from the Championship to the Premier League. And I think looking forward at Southampton, I don't think, unlike Newcastle, there's not going to be a massive overhaul. I think they're quite happy with the squad there. They're happy with Raf Hasenhüttl. As long as they stay in the Premier League, they'll be quite content. And probably the way the football's moving now, a lot of analytics going to be looked there at the way Southampton go forward, especially on the recruitment side of things, and a lot of data and everything else, because that's what Rasmus Angussen was so key at Brentford. The way they looked at the transfer market was a lot of analysts went into it and data driven. So yeah, exciting times for Southampton fans. They'll be hoping that it'll see an improvement on the pitch as well as off the pitch. Yeah, really interesting one to watch. As I said, probably the key between this Southampton Takeover and the Newcastle one is that they've brought people on board with football experience. In Rasmus, Newcastle haven't done that when they took over. It was a lot of people who maybe didn't have expertise or experience in football. Rasmus has got that. As you said, he's probably got a project in mind. It'll be similar to what he's probably done at Brentford and Midtjylland. I think that's the key difference between those 2 takeovers. There'll be no panic at Southampton right now. Well, you could maybe say that Newcastle are panicking a bit now in this transfer market to get signings in and try and secure their Premier League status. Yeah,
bit supermarket sweep at Newcastle, isn't it? It's good. It's good. Okay, really thankful for your insight. If you want to just drop your Twitter handle in the chat box. Anybody that's not already following Pete, which isn't many people left on the planet these days, make sure that you do. Tony, any words for Pete before we move on?
Oh, Pete, honestly, I'm looking at your Twitter every day to see what's actually going out there and seeing who's in for what. And really appreciate your feedback and your input today. It's been fantastic, and it really, you know, you've obviously got your finger on the pulse, and let's just hopefully, for me, the January window is all about the last sort of couple of weeks when everything really starts to get frantic. It seems quiet at the moment, but I know you're going to be having a really busy January. So good luck with that, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Appreciate it, and good luck to you guys as well.
Cheers, Pete. Hopefully see you up in the northeast soon.
All right, pal.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good stuff. Tony, what's next?
We've got the guys. We've got Max and Dimitri. Here they are, right on cue. That's perfect.
Seamless.
Yeah. Our friends from Catenaccio AI. I love that name.
Great name.
These are the guys who have, they've brought the GBE points check calculator to a lot of clubs, you know, in England, a lot of agencies, a lot of people are using this calculator. So guys, how are you?
Good, guys. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to congratulate everyone on the new year, and also with the opening of the transfer window 2022. Like you remember, on the previous summer transfer forum, we were online together with our sales manager, Arthur. But not long time ago, Arthur got a positive COVID-19 test.
Oh, okay.
So this was a difficult time for him, and finally he win this most important game in his life and start to recover. So from all our staff, we wish him to join us back as soon as possible, be healthy and strong. And so guys, as you know, on December 23, just before the Christmas, the Football Association of England was update the GBE points regulation and made some changes which come into force on January 1. That means the agent and club didn't have so much time to prepare and start working according to the new rules. And today I'm glad to inform you that January 3rd, we already fully update our algorithm and announce full support for the new rules and notified all our customers about it. And I'm very proud of our tech team, because the Catenaccio AI is only company that has complete update the algorithm with fully supports the new rules. And the other provider have not yet provided information about updating their system. And today I present you our product manager, Dmitry, and he will provide a short presentation on our GBE calculator from Catenaccio AI.
Yeah, Max. The tool, basically, I've been using it since you brought it in last year. Obviously, with Brexit, a lot of the players now have to hit the points, the right points, to be able to come in to the UK. How busy have you been in this last year? How many clubs have you got involved with?
Oh, so if my partner now will share the screen and he will show you our customer and our feedback from the club.
Yeah, brilliant, perfect.
Hi guys, thank you, Max. And previously in the summer forum, we made a big presentation about every detail of the platform, but now I'm not going to go to all the same things again, but just to show you some new features. And Tony, that you asked about how many clubs already joined, you can find it out on our website, but not only how many clubs in the Championship League, but also good comments from them by who are using this platform already. Also a good comment, Tony, from you. Thank you. He didn't change your mind, and I know you've been using this Pro
Plan account.
Yeah, no, it's been really useful, guys. Thank you.
How do you find the Pro Plan account, Tony? Tell me please your feeling, because before you every time use the platform base.
Yeah, no, the Pro account, it just gives you so much more. I've been looking at different leagues and players who are eligible who you didn't probably think were eligible. So I've been crunching some sort of, he's okay, we can get him into the country. And the main thing for me, Max and Dimitri, is when an agent from abroad rings me and has a player who wants to place in England, I'm able to say, yes, he can come in, or no, he doesn't meet the criteria. So it's been really useful. The Pro platform takes it on to another level. It's been really useful for me, but it's useful for the research that I can do. And when I'm talking to agents, I can see which league they're in straight away. I can match it up with the GBE points. I think it's been fantastic.
Okay, good to hear. And our main goal was that the platform is fast, easy, and most importantly accurate.
If I can use it, anyone can use it. With technology, I'm not the best at technology, am I, Ryan? Do you know what I mean?
You're not bad, Tony.
Like in football language, a year ago we were like in a Sunday league, but now we feel like we're in Champions League, and this year we'll reach the Premier League. There's some new things that we updated. Also, the new bands were added. You can see also
looks fantastic.
The rest of the world is here. Now you can have a free agents, and those whose contract is going to expire in 2022.
Wow. I was looking at the 2022 before I came on the show, because there's a lot of big players out of contract in 2022, and it shows it on the Pro, doesn't it? That's been useful as well, and obviously the next year as well.
Yeah. Also, now you have the possibility to download players' profile and results in PDF, which is useful also for the agents when they go and present, the football players' results. You can see it here. For example, a player in the Russian league, Premier League, you click the download PDF, and it goes directly to your computer, and you can open it up, and you can see print it out and go and see where he got his scores from, which makes it really easy. And guys, how much lawyers, companies, and those agencies charge you hourly in England. So this is a really cool and money-saving platform that you can use now only for $19.99. You can check one result. Also, we have updated our pricing list. There's no more base plan what it used to be. Now it's starter, which is monthly 99 pounds, but you can have 20 checks.
20 checks per month.
Yeah, is that more aimed at the clubs, or is that aimed at agents as well?
Yeah, it's also for agencies and clubs. They have this pro version. You know, they have more features and unlimited checks. For clubs also will just soon will come up the shortlist. So the many features coming up, but you know, if to reach more audience, this one-time check is possible just for $19.99.
Perfect. And you've got an offer as well. We're going to do a little bit of a promotion, aren't we, with the guys today?
Exactly. Today, everyone will get this promo code when they register. They will have 3 checks possible until Monday. And also for the clubs, they will be able to have a free trial for 1 week of a pro plan. You know, they can send us the request via email, and we'll send them registration link with the username and password.
Yeah, are you going to put that in the chat, Dimitri?
Sure. Yeah, we will do that.
Perfect, perfect. Is you know, it's such a valuable tool, this, and it can save so much time, because straight away you know whether the player's eligible. I think there is one thing to add. We've also got the exemptions panel. The exemptions panel is back, isn't it, guys? So some of the players will be eligible, some of the players would make the exemptions panel, and then obviously the clubs and the agents have got to, you know, fight the case for that player to come in. But you know, it just tells you straight away what you need to do and which path you need to take.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, is there anything else? I want you to share all your details in the chat with everyone. And you had a code. Did you have a code for the offer? There was some.
Yes, we do have a code. I will just type it in the chat box.
Perfect.
So everyone can see it.
Perfect. So while you're doing that, we'll move on. Thank you so much, guys, and good luck. I know it's a busy period for you, the January transfer window. You've got lots of people. It's a real busy time. I suppose it's the 3 months of the transfer windows are the busiest times. But I suppose there's transfer windows going on in other places as well. So people are looking at it for other reasons, you know, like the out of contract, like the different leagues, who's eligible. And I think if you're a scout and you're looking at League 2 France, for example, there are players there that qualify. You know, there's in some leagues that you might have thought, well, nobody will qualify. There is players. So by getting the pro, you'll be able to find out who those players are who already hit the criteria, and that's going to help you scouting.
Yeah, guys, if you could just put that link on, but just change it to that you're sending it out to everyone, because I think it's just come on to us at the moment. That would be perfect. But some really good feedback there, Tony. Lots of people say asking about the accessibility and, you know, amazing tools. So some really good feedback. And it is a great tool. Yeah,
with the code, what do the people have to do? They have to email you with that code, or what do they do?
They need just make new registration and put promo code.
Registration, yeah.
Oh, just on the platform. Do everything on the platform. Perfect.
And the account will available for 3 free checks.
Three free checks. Brilliant.
Yes.
So,
for the club, just please contact to us. Request, and we will answer as soon as possible, and we will give for the club 1 week free trial for sure.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Really lovely to have you on. Good luck in the transfer window.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Great
Bye.
stuff.
Bye.
Great stuff. Tony, you know, great to have those guys on. 2 really sets of guests this morning. Now we're going to get into something a bit more sort of technical and that sort of update on where the governance of agents is at the moment.
In terms of where did you want me to go through the FA circular and that?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So any agents on here who are registered with the FA in England will have got the transfer window update just before January. I think it was about the 20th, 21st of December. And that sort of marks your card for the January. So obviously, the first thing it tells you is the dates of the transfer window. We all probably know them. You know, it's open now until the 31st at 11 p.m. Interestingly, if anyone's working with women's players, they've put a slightly different date, and I think that's probably a good thing. You know, there's slightly different dates for the women so that all the transfers aren't coming in at the end of the month. There's a couple of things on there that I just wanted to highlight that we've talked about the governing body endorsement. Let's just, sorry, Ryan, just go back to the slide. Yeah, the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you get that up on the screen?
Yeah.
Make it a bit bigger. Yeah, so we talked, that's just the transfer windows, and obviously women's is slightly different. Go down to the second slide, please, Ryan. Yeah. Yeah, so players have to be out of contract. If you're going to be considered an out of contract player, you have to terminate your contract within the transfer window, and then you're free to move irrespective of windows. The 3+2 rule, I came a real cropper on that. It was you know, you're only allowed to play. So if you've been on loan at a club for the first half of the season and maybe had a couple of games for your own club, you can't then move to a third club and play. I had a Premier League player who'd made he'd made one substitute appearance for his Premier League team. He'd then gone out on loan, and then in January he wanted to do another loan to another club, but he couldn't because he'd had about 5 minutes for one club, half a season for another club, so he couldn't do that transfer. The governing body endorsements is just what we've been talking about. The exceptions panel will continue during the transfer window. That wasn't always going to be the case, but it is continuing. So that means that players who don't get 15 points, I think it's 11 over 11, you have to go to a little bit of a tribunal, explain the case for the player. Often when they're young players and they're coming to big clubs, it's not too much of an arduous process. Let's move on, Ryan. Yeah, this one, the FIFA agent regulations. Well, myself and Ryan have been talking about these for years now. It's probably 2.5, 3 years. FIFA have been updating the rules and regs. They're wanting to bring them in. They're wanting hard caps on agents. They haven't brought them in yet because a number of reasons. It is a monumental task. It is a monumental task. But also, as soon as they ratify the rules and regulations through all the FIFA committees, and it's got a hard commission cap on it, whether it's 3%, 10%, whatever it is, it will be challenged in courts across Europe. They might choose a couple, Switzerland and Belgium, or they might do it in a multi-jurisdictional, you know, right across the world. But there's going to be a big bun fight in courts, to be honest. And I think that's part of the hiatus. That's part of we haven't put these in. We've leaked them to the press. Everyone knows what the rules are going to be, but we haven't ratified them yet. And I think that's where the issue lies. Now, I'm hearing, and I had a bit of conversation with one of the guys at the FA, I'm hearing that these rules might be coming in late 2022, but I've heard that before. You know, we're missing, I'd strongly urge them not to bring them in before the summer transfer window. It's probably a good idea to bring them in the quieter January transfer window, before the January transfer window, when everyone gets used to them. But, you know, that's being said, it's going to be late 2022. The other thing that a lot of people do ask is the exam coming back? And yes, it is. It definitely is coming back. And the other thing is, do agents who've already passed the exam need to do it again? Now, and this is a direct steer from the FA. They're saying that the agents who've previously done the exam and passed it and have an agent's license in place over the whole period that since they passed the exam, over the whole period, they won't have to do the exam again. I think those people who registered from 2015, and the FA have alluded to it in this circular, they may have to do the license again, or do the exam for the first time. And the FA they said something like, we might give them a bit of lead-in time so they can do the exam before the actual hard, right, you need to be registered, you need to have done your exam, comes into play. So there is a bit of time.
Yeah.
One to study, two, you might need 2 or 3 shots at it, you know, because it is a really tough exam. You might need a bit of time just to get your ducks in order and to get that exam done and nailed before the actual regulations, you know, will, because it could stop people, you know, people with players who've been doing a really good job for those players. If they don't pass their exam, once the rules come in hard and fast, they'll no longer be registered agents. They won't be licensed agents. So I think myself and Ryan are going to, you know, try and support the agent community who want to pass the exam and want to take the exam. We'll be doing some things with ASA football agent education, but it's a real, you know, it's a tricky period we're going through just before getting these rules in place and when they actually come in place. And we know what's going to happen. You know, it's going to be delayed again through the courts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we know that there's lots of talks between FIFA and some of the key stakeholders. But I think, Tony, you know, like the work that we've done on the Doing Business In series as well, there's so many stakeholders. They're so numerous. It's many stakeholders within each country. There's no way FIFA are going to get an umbrella agreement with everybody. Well, I do agree that next Christmas would be a good time. We've got the World Cup. There's a sort of natural break. But that would be a good time if they can get an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Doing Business In series that we did in partnership with the European Football Agents Association, and they're very close to people at FIFA. There is a frustration at FIFA about these hard caps, but that's coming from a higher level. You know, people see, I think Hugo mentioned Minoriola's making a fortune on a deal, and no doubt Pogba's next deal, if he's doing it, he'll be making another tidy sum. I'm sure. Yeah, but you know, they're really close, the European Football Agents Association to FIFA, and they're, you know, I think there is a bit of middle ground, but at the moment it's a Mexican standoff. Nobody wants to give anything, and as soon, like I say, as soon as it's ratified, it'll be challenged in court. And I don't, you know, I think FIFA are on a bit of a sticky wicket anyway. You know, let's not go on about hard caps and things like that, because I know it gets to Ryan's goat, but you know, it will just delay things and confuse the issue even more. And I think, you know, if agents just stick to, it'll be my 20th year as a registered or licensed agent, and the rules have changed 3 times majorly in that time. There'll always be changes and tweaks. I don't think they've got it right 100% here, but they're getting closer, and I quite like the idea of a central body that looks after the whole world. But like Ryan said, when we did Doing Business in France, agents' rules and regs are in French law. There's some French law that governs what agents can do, and so are FIFA going to go and overturn French law? I don't think so. You know, it's going to be a tricky task that they've set themselves. French will back down on it, Tony. But it could come. Do you know what? It could come down to a negotiated settlement, and what I think if FIFA had properly engaged with the right agent community and right across the board, I think there could have been a solution there. But I think what they've done is pushed their view and not really listened enough to football agents.
Yeah, in many ways, France have got the set up right. And the way I see it is that, you know, people like yourself, people that are active, proper agents, and people that want to be that, should embrace some of the changes. You know, I think that, you know, the exam is to be embraced. The barriers to entry at the moment are perhaps too low. You know, one could argue. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out anyway. So keep tuned for that. Tony, we've got a bit of information to share with the people tuning in before we wrap up today in terms of another project that we've been working on.
Yeah, I'm just going to share. Let me just put this in here.
Yeah, just make sure you share the sound as well, Tone.
All right, okay, yeah. So if you go to, I'm going to try and click on this. If you go to the Football Transfer Forum YouTube, if I click on that, will it come up, Ryan, do you think? It should do.
Yeah.
So hang on. Did it come up briefly there? Right, where am I? Oh. I think the technology is going to beat me here, but I was trying to bring up the YouTube page, and it's just taking a little bit of time on my computer. As my computer's like, just hold on a second. Right, I think this is coming up. Yeah, guys, we what we've done with our YouTube page. Oh, I need to share that, don't I? Just slight technical issue. Share screen. Right, yeah, what we've done with our YouTube channel is we've released all of last year's, oh, here we go. Sorry guys, a technical. We've released all of last year's webinars, so they're all there. You can go back and look at some of our guests we've had on. You know, I've made mention of them today. You can see that all on our YouTube. Please subscribe to us. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this, the video of our project, and then me and Ryan can have a little bit of a chat about it. So here we go. Just hold on a second.
First of all, we've got to define the role of the sporting director.
Yeah, so that's what, basically that's a little taster, a little trailer of what myself, Ryan and Julian Dow of Football for Football have been working on in the past couple of months. We basically sat Steve down and said, look, Steve, we want to catalogue your knowledge and experiences as a sporting director. And obviously Steve will be well known to this audience, one of the top sporting directors in the world. You know, what he did at Leicester in terms of helping them achieve unbelievable things, and many other clubs as well. I mean, the list of players that he's signed is just incredible. And players not signed for big money. He's been at clubs where he hasn't had a lot of money to spend, but he's made some really shrewd signings. You know, when he's at Leicester, Mahrez, Kante, Jamie Vardy, you know, he was very instrumental in bringing Jamie Vardy to the club. So we've we've got a series of videos where he's just talking about how to become a sporting director, what the issues are, what things you need to learn. He's just sharing his knowledge and experience, Ryan.
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of deep thinking in there, and there's a lot of great insight in there as well. Really, for anybody that is interested in the process of the recruitment of the players, also managing a team within a football club as well. You know, we always think as the sporting director, will they sign the players? Well, actually, they could have a staff of 20, 30 people. And it's the process of managing those people to work towards this common goal of having efficiency of the acquisition of human beings at the end of the day. And yeah, there's some really, really great stuff in there, and it's a nice way for people that are interested to absorb that information as well. You know, you can do it at your own time, your own pace. You can go back and listen as many times as you want. So yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah,
and you know, there is a lot of people looking to start working in that sort of, you know, people who've been scouts and agents looking to get, you know, I mentioned Isaac Hayden earlier on, players as well, getting into the sporting director role, and it's such an interesting role. I think Ryan, I don't know whether you agree, is because people are on Football Manager and played Football Manager, it sort of whets the appetite for the real thing, you know, the real world transfers, how it actually works, what the stresses are, and you know, we've talked about the transfer window today, and we've talked about Newcastle. You know, it's a real tough month for them. This is probably the most unbelievable month that they'll ever had as football professionals, and I mean everyone in the club, from the head coach, Nikki Hammond, Steve Nixon, all of the scouts, you know, Guy Yapor in France, Paul Baker up in England. They'll be working absolutely flat out for the whole month to try and get, you know, four or five human beings in, maybe three or four human beings out. And that's not easy.
No, it's these deals are hard to do, aren't they, Tony? It's not Football Manager, is it? These deals are extremely difficult to do.
And you know, Steve's talking about some of his practical advice and tips are worth the wait and go, because if you make a mistake, you say the wrong thing, or you do the wrong thing, or you make the wrong offer to a player, or you're speaking to the wrong people, you can, you know, the difference between signing a player and not signing a player, getting a deal done and not getting a deal done, sometimes it comes down to fine margins and the individuals and how good the individuals are at getting that deal done. So yeah, no, we're looking forward to that, and we'll see how it goes. It's on Vimeo. It's not out just yet, but it'll be out in the next month or so. So we're really looking forward to that. And it, you know, Steve's over in Charlotte. He was at our last Football Transfer Forum live. He's got a really interesting project. Ryan, I noticed they'd signed about 8 players since the Football Transfer Forum.
Yeah, I think there's been a big build up. That obviously they've not had games and anything like that, so they're getting close to where they need to be. Okay, good stuff. Fantastic. It's flown by as it always does this morning. 2 really, really good chats. Obviously with Peter and the guys from Catenaccio AI. Look, I would absolutely take those guys up on the offer. We've shared it in the chat. Get yourselves on the website. Access for that offer. If you're a club, get in contact with the guys directly through the website. And they're obviously offering you a free week on the platform. And so, yeah, I think I've really enjoyed it.
It's a good week. It's a good week to have it, because you can check your players and then decide whether you're going to sign them in the next couple of weeks. There was a couple of questions actually.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan, do you want to go through? I've answered a couple of them, but there was one more from Ed.
Yeah. What role does sustainability play, or should play in transfer business? Good question. I guess the easiest way to answer that is it's wrapped up in the financial management processes that we've got across our leagues. Combination of financial fair play domestically, and for those clubs that are in Europe, UEFA financial fair play. For the clubs in the Championship, there's a process as well, and I alluded to in the chat for League 1, League 2 clubs, the salary cost management protocol, where they can only spend a certain amount of their turnover on wages. obviously, as we've talked on this platform many times, those systems don't really seem to be fit for purpose if you are then measuring the debt levels and loss levels in football clubs. But then we can go on to a big chat about whether or not you should allow debt in business. So should it play a role? Absolutely. The problem is that if you're going for a promotion and your nearest competitor is doing business, then that moral argument you have in your club in terms of what damage does this do to our club is blurred by the necessity to keep up with the Joneses as well. And these are the market forces that clubs are operating under.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ryan. That's good, yeah.
I think there's one more there. Oh, is it possible to a reset of the financial situation concerning player transfer costs? Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
Again, it's something I've pondered for a long time, and the question's been asked. You know, should we do away with transfer fees? Should we do away with them? What role do they really play in the game? Especially when most of the outgoings of football clubs are wrapped up in wages. So it's a very difficult one to answer. Extremely difficult one to undo from the status quo. I really like the model of clubs being able to only spend a certain percentage of their income on wages, because I think that incentivize a growth in income, whilst at the same time leaving space for profit-making football clubs and expenditure on everything else that we want football clubs to spend the money on.
Yeah, Adam, great question again.
Great question.
I would just add that, you know, there has been a financial correction in player costs, salaries, transfers, not in the Premier League, but in the Championship, in the SPL, in some of the other leagues around Europe as well. And that's just become because of what's happened with the pandemic, you know, and the fans haven't been there. Some football's been lost, you know, and the revenue streams have just reduced. And I think most clubs have cut the cloth accordingly. You know, we get some of the clubs in the Championship, you know, once a player's contract comes to the end, he might have been, let's say that the club was relegated from the Premier League, the player's on 30 grand a week, he might get a slight reduction for going down into the Championship, but he's still on a really good contract. If they don't renew the next season or the season after, they'll probably want to bring another player in for less money. And that process takes, you know, it depends how long players' contracts are. You know, it takes at least a year and usually 2 or 3 before a big earning contract gets, you know, it comes to an end. And that we've seen a lot of financial correction in the leagues below the Premier League.
Excellent. There's a nice comment at the other, the efficiency of transfers. There's some great stuff out there. So great that you're looking at that. You know, my observation is not a particularly efficient process at all. Okay, we've reached 12 o'clock. It's time to let everybody get on with their day. Tony, really appreciate your time as always, and great guests as well.
Really enjoyed it, and hopefully everyone's a great January transfer window. You either get your players out, in, or whatever, and hopefully we have another good webinar just after, where we'll be looking at what went on in the transfer window. So the next one will be the first Thursday in February. This will be available as well on the YouTube channel once it's been uploaded and everything else, so you can watch it back. Okay, thanks Ryan. Thanks.
Hey guys. Take care everybody. Bye.